Welcome to the Savvy Dentist Podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Jason Cunningham, welcome back to the Savvy Dentist Podcast. It's wonderful to have you here again, my friend. You are officially now known as a repeat offender.
Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Mate, it's good to have you. I always enjoy the conversations with you. And interestingly enough, the podcast that we did way back when was really heavily downloaded, really listened to, and got a lot of feedback about how helpful it was. So I thought it'd be really good to come back and talk to you again and find out a little bit what's happening in the life and times of Jason Cunningham. So what's been cooking since we last spoke, mate?
Well, right off the top, I discovered I'm a repeat offender, which sort of thrown me a little bit with that. And I'm
so sorry, mate.
I'm looking over the back of my shoulder. So what's been happening? I guess just business as usual for us. Although I will say we have tempered our growth expectations. I think when we last spoke, we were about ready to take on the world and run up the east coast of Australia and be rock stars. And look, that still sort of sits in the background. But I guess for us, we're probably getting a little bit older. Not saying that I'm an old guy or whatever. It's just when you tick over 45 and then you're closer to 50 than you were 40, I guess you start to see things a little bit differently. And so we've just sort of slowed down our growth aspirations and our focus for this 12 months. And every year, as you know, Jesse, we have a theme in our business. And this year our theme is proactivity. And from proactivity, I mean, we went away for a couple of days and worked on our strategic plan like we do every year. And we come back and then towards the end, when we were coming back and we landed on this word proactivity, I said to my partners, okay, we can't go back to the office, 60 team members and tell them, here we go, write one word up on a whiteboard and say, there's our strategic plan. We sort of elaborated a little bit on it. And for us, proactivity in two parts. In the efficient use of our systems and processes and our IT platforms that we utilise, because as you know, most of us only utilise 10% of it. So we thought, let's go real deep on that. And then the other piece was around L&D and learning and development for our team members. And as a result of that, we hired the old term was an HR manager. They're called P&C managers now, people and culture. I'm just helping you get up with the times there, Doc.
Oh, thanks, mate. I thought you were going to say PC, like politically correct for a second.
No. I think it's a term to get herself a bit more of a pay rise, but no, I'm only joking. So we've got a people and culture manager, and we're really focusing on those two parts of our business. So going deep on our systems and processes and fully tapping into the IT platforms that we utilise, and then also a big stream around learning and development for our team members. And as an adjunct to that, we've hired a people and culture manager, which is not without its challenges, but we know that we're in the business of people. So we're a people business, and so it's really, really, really important because there's practically zero unemployment, as you know, in Australia, practically. And so the younger generation aren't staying in their jobs as long as we used to. So for us, providing and creating and cultivating an environment that's not only conducive enough for key people to want to come and join our business, but also it's adhesive enough to hold on to these guys because placing people, man, that's some of the cheapest exercise you can do.
No, totally. So, okay, with your P&C manager, what have been the insights so far? What have been the learnings and how do you attract and retain those good people? Because all of us are in the marketing business for people, right? We're all trying to find the best talent. We're trying to keep the best talent. So any insights that you've uncovered so far?
The biggest thing, and it's funny because we're doing all the performance reviews at the moment, the biggest insight that's popped out as a result of her having the various conversations she's had is that our team members are really keen on a career development path, not just within the technical aspect of their job. So we run an accounting and financial services business. So not just accounting and financial planning, not just that tech piece, but also the softer skills and the whole how do I become more efficient? How do I become a better leader? How do I communicate better? Those sorts of things, time management, all that sort of stuff are what our guys are demanding from us at work.
No, wow, that's really interesting. And I guess if you pave the way for them and show them that path, then hopefully they'll stick around. And I know Richard Branson's got that wonderful saying that train your people so well they can work anywhere and treat them so well they'll never leave. And it seems like that's the path you're taking too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a fine line. We were talking when we went away. We've actually had, we've been in business 22 years, and over the 22 years, we've had 9 people leave our organisation and start their own business. And it depends on how you look at it, right? The first way is, oh, man, now they've gone into competition. Or the other way is, you should be proud of that we have inspired 9 different team members to go off and flourish and start their own businesses. So I tend to agree with what Mr. Branson's saying there.
Yeah. Well, he knows a thing or two apparently about business. I reckon. I reckon he's got a few things figured out. Mate, I want to talk to you a little bit about preparing businesses for exit and businesses for sale, because I know you spend a lot of time helping business owners in that space. Mm-hmm. And I know there'll be a lot of people listening to this particular podcast saying, but I'm not ready to sell my business, or I don't want to sell my business. So before you tune out and think this is not an episode for me, I want to share with you, I think that every business should be built to sell, but whether you choose to sell it or not is a totally different question. So I wanted to ask you a little bit around preparing businesses for sale and some of the things that might come up in terms of growing the value of the business and so on. When you're looking to sell your business, obviously, if you are going to exit, you want to get the best value possible, the highest selling price. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you, if the old equation is value equals earnings times a multiple, what are the things that you see impacting on the multiple particularly?
Well, okay, so let's start. If I can just rewind it for 8 seconds.
Go for it.
The reason that I'm really passionate about this is I completely concur with the point that you raised. And the fact of, even though you're building a business that's ready for sale, doesn't mean you have to sell it. What it does do is it gives you choice. And the clients that I've worked with and the clients that we work with, more often than not, they get to the point where the business is ready for sale and they choose not to sell it.
Yep.
Okay. And what inspired me to do this was a guy I wrote about in my book, Have Your Cake and Sell It Too. And the guy, I refer to him as Macca. And I've known him for, I don't know, 25 years, but we'd spent quite a bit of time going to the same gym together.
Yep.
And every Friday, there's a group of 6 of us, we'd get in a bit later, we'd have a workout, have a shower, grab some breakfast and solve the problems of the world. And we'd start work a little bit later on a Friday. But we'd get to about 10 o'clock and I'd say, look, boys, I've got to go. And Mac would say, where are you going, Chase? I said, mate, I've got to go to work. And he said, but aren't you the boss? Don't you own the business? I go, yeah, but you don't understand. I've got so many clients to see. I'm so busy. I'm so important and all this sort of garbage. And hey, you don't get it. You're the boss. Anyway, after doing and throwing and whatnot, I discovered that Macca was right. So he'd built a business that was ready for sale. And this guy, Macca, makes pretty much more money than God. I mean, he probably drops in the bottom line over $3 million a year, which is pretty good effort. And he works 4 hours a week.
Pretty good return on investment there.
I would have thought so. Now, he's in a position where he can sell and he chose not to.
Yep.
All right. And I mean, why would you sell if you're working 4 hours a week? You go to a board meeting once a month, and if you want, you can go in more, but you're only really needed 4 hours a week and you're making 3 bricks a year. I reckon that's not too bad. It's not just, the piece is not just about the profitability times the multiple. And I think that's really important, particularly for a lot of the listeners on this podcast. For the most part, they're technicians, yeah? And so they get into their business because they're good at their craft. And for a lot of I'm an accountant and I mix in the accounting circles. And let me tell you, that's pretty exciting sort of circles to mix in, just. In the second year of our degree, there's a subject where they actually remove our personality and our ability to communicate with them.
I reckon I'll introduce you to some of my parties and I'll go to some of yours and we can compare notes.
But at least at your parties, you've got those bottles of things that you can put the gas over your mouth and have fun and all that sort of stuff. Right?
Yeah, no, I shouldn't say that because dentists are actually pretty good fun. In fact, I married a dentist and we always joke amongst ourselves that it's a social service. We married each other to keep us out of the general population. It's a bit of a social service.
It's funny, my wife's an accountant too. But anyway, let's stop talking about our personal lives. Hey, so as I was saying, a lot of the dentists that get into practice, a lot of accountants that get into practice, or doctors or pharmacists or whatever, they do it typically because they believe they can do it better than most and they want to run their own show. But the challenge with running your own show is, how am I going to buy your practice if your practice is solely reliant on you?
Of course.
Yeah. The key, the final number we talk about a maintainable earnings number, which is typically the profitability over the last X amount of years.
Yep.
And then the multiple, how we grow the multiple, is dependent on a whole heap of factors. One of them being, if I buy your business, do I need you to hang around or not? Now, if I was selling Jason Cunningham and Co. accounting firm, and that all hinged on my name and my reputation, then you're going to want me to hang around for a long time, Jesse. But from day one when we built our business, we called it the practice. We had no inference, no reference to our names. Sure, I have developed and built a bit of a profile that helps create leads that come into our business. But my business does not need me to operate at all. And so we're focusing on the various different factors that enable us to get a higher multiple. So one of those, when I talk to clients, I talk about, I say, your numbers come last. And people say, that's madness. I go, no, if you just hear me out, every business is built on the same 4 pillars. It's your people, it's the processes that your people follow, it's the customers that you engage with, and those, your people, your processes, your customers, that's what drives the financials. And so I spend a lot of time working on my team, developing, and this is one of the reasons why, if you look at our strategy this year around proactivity, why we're so big on the L&D, learning and development piece, with our people and culture manager, because we know that if we can cultivate and create an environment that enables our guys to be the very best that they can be, if we can train them up, help them engage with the customer, help them add more value to our clients, if we can show them how they can be better themselves and how they can create more leaders within our organisation, there is no doubt that I will lose some of them. Okay, there is no doubt
for sure
that will happen, right? But the vast majority will stay and help build an amazing business. The question is, what's the alternative? And if the alternative is that everything relies on Jason, then when's Jason going to go and have a holiday, or when is he going to, have a sick day or do whatever? So the people piece is really important. And so when we look at, if I'm looking to, obviously I'll value business differently if I'm going to buy it or if I'm going to sell it, right?
Sure, of course.
So if I'm looking to buy a business, I want to look at the strength of the team in the organisation. What sort of staff turnover do they have? What's their involvement in customer relationships, and how sticky are customers or clients to the business and to the brand as opposed to the individual? I think that's really important. The second piece is then talks about the systems and the processes. How airtight, what is the system in your practice or in your business? How can I pick up a manual? Obviously, we don't, it's all online and all that sort of stuff. But can I run your business even though I'm not a dentist or even though I'm not an accountant?
Yep.
How is it for me to operate and run that business? And this is why franchisees are quite popular, because the theory behind that is it's pretty much a turnkey operation. Here, put our brand, put our logo up above your door, and away you go. And so those systems and processes are important. And then the next piece, it talks about the customer piece. How many times are your clients repeat clients, or to use your language, repeat offenders? How often are they buying off you? How many of your products and services are they buying? Are they just buying one service, or are you their go-to person for anything that operates in your field? And so as part of all that is then, how do you maintain that amazing asset that you've got, which is your customer base?
Yeah.
And so in my industry, accountants aren't really strong, typically aren't good at communicating with their customers, right? They're pretty good at sending them a bill, and they think that's a good way to communicate. I think that's just comprehensively incorrect. I never want to send a bill to my client in the mail. I want to be in a position where we're having conversations with our customers. They're aware of what they're going to pay or a range of the fee. And when we bill them, it's no surprise. And for the most part, our clients are paying us monthly anyway. So we've discovered the importance. And when we started, we just did it all arse about, to be honest with you, because we were just two 24-year-old kids with no idea. We've got the cheapest software we could find. We rented the cheapest office we could find, and away we went. Next minute, you blink, and 22 years later, you've got 4,000 clients. And maintaining the integrity of that database, it was quite a challenge. If someone, God forbid, went and got divorced and changed their surname, that was like an hour process for us across all our databases. So we spent so much time, money, and people resources in ensuring that we understood our customer and we house that information in the right database, because there's nothing worse than calling someone Mrs. Jesse Green, and not knowing that he's a he.
Yeah, totally. And that happens. Actually, I received some mail literally last week to Miss Jessie Green, and so it happens. It's quite amazing.
Yeah,
Jason, one of the things I really enjoy about the work that you do, and I don't think this is a very accountant-like approach to business, but one of the things I really enjoy about the work that you do is that you look, as you say, beyond the numbers. The numbers come last. And what I really appreciate about what you just said is, because this is all about business structure. It's about setting it up for sale, setting it up for leverage, setting it up like your mate Macca, who can be in the business as much as he chooses effectively. So there'll be people listening to this particular podcast who are technicians and they're kind of in the trenches doing the do, right? Delivering the service. In an accountant's world, they're doing the bookwork or the numbers or whatever. So in terms of transitions, because I'm sure you didn't get to the point you're at overnight, Macca didn't get to the point where he was at overnight. What are those first steps? What are the transition pieces?
Yeah, that's a good question. Can I just say first at the start, there's nothing wrong with working in the trenches. Some people actually love their craft. Some people love to be a dentist. They love doing what they do. They love accounting. That's all cool. So I do not disrespect that, and I think that we've all got our own choice. And I know that you do too as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to preface that. The first step, and the absolute first step, is to get out of your practice, go somewhere away that you're not comfortable or that you're not used to. So not your boardroom, not at home, and develop a plan.
Yep.
Okay. And build a plan. And a lot of people don't plan because they don't know how to, or they feel that they don't have the time. Now, what I know that one of the things you and I share in common is that we both have 24 hours every day available to us, 7 days a week and 12 months in a year. And the only way we can find more time is to create the time. And so time blocks. So the first thing, the absolute first thing, is to find a place in your diary in 4 or 6 weeks' time and book 2 days out during the week and get out of your practice and develop a plan. Now, in recent times, I've worked on sports radio for 11 years now, and so I'm in and around sport talking about finance and money, which is a bit odd, but it was meant to last for 3 months and it's lasted 11 years. But I mix with a lot of people in the AFL circles just through the radio system I work on and stuff like that. And the longer I get in the tooth, how's that for an analogy for dentists, eh?
There
Look at me, get dirty.
There we go.
So I probably can turn it off now. The longer I get in the tooth, the more I realise the amount of correlations with elite sporting teams and businesses. And you and I spoke earlier off air about some books that we've read, and I was remiss to mention one which is called Legacy. It's a book about the New Zealand All Blacks. It's an amazing, amazing book. And if you get a chance to read it, you've probably read it, no doubt, Doc. But
it's a good one.
For your listeners out there, if they get a chance to read this book called Legacy, it's about New Zealand All Blacks, which I was going to say arguably, not arguably, they are the number one successful sporting team in the world globally. More successful than Manchester United, Chicago Bulls, LA Lakers, LA Dodgers, Essendon Footy Club, whoever it is that you follow, Canberra Raiders, whoever it is that you follow. They win 86% of the time. And some of the stuff that they talk in that book about legacy is powerful. But we'll come to that in a minute. Let me give you some correlations with what elite sporting teams do and what most small to medium-sized businesses don't do. The first thing is that they plan. Now, I'm in Melbourne, an AFL supporter. There's a footy club called the Richmond Football Club, which you may or may not have heard of.
I have.
They won the AFL Grand Final in 2017. Halfway through 2016, the place was in disarray and the club was on the brink of kicking out their coach and overthrowing the board. But the chairperson of the board is a very strong, powerful, strong leader, communicates with conviction, and she knows her stuff. Her name is Peggy O'Neill. And so she's a leader of a very popular, very strong, powerful franchise and the AFL system in a man's world, right? But this woman, man, she knows her stuff. So she's stuck fat by the coach. The coach's name came in Hardwick, and their CEO's someone by the name of Cunningham. Stuck fat, knew that they were onto something, but they needed to just tweak their plan. But they knew that they just needed to tweak their plan by a few little nuances. At the end of the football season, everyone went away, and the heads of football came together, and for 2 weeks they developed their strategic plan, and as a subset of that, their game plan. When the players came back from their overseas trip, and drank and did all the things that AFL footballers like NRL players do in the off-season, came back and dried themselves out, and they went into the classroom. And for the next 2 weeks, the players learnt the plan. They understood the on-field plan, the off-field plan, and every single person in the football department sat in a classroom for 2 weeks to walk through the game plan and the off-field plan. Then they went out and practiced the plan. They came back in and they changed the plan. They practiced the plan. They changed the plan. They dieted well. They trained. They exercised. They practiced the plan. Everyone had their own little plans within the plan. They went away over Christmas, came back. The plan, practice, plan. I'll pause it there before the start of the season. Most business owners don't have a plan.
No.
Those that do have a plan, it's 5 years old.
Yep.
And those that with a 5-year-old plan, it sits in their bottom drawer and they don't tell anyone about it. Conversely, you compare that to an AFL footy club, the Richmond Football Club, who are on the brink of getting their backsides handed to them in the 2016 year, start the 2017 year off. No one else knows this except what's inside the four walls of the footy club. Every single person in the place knew what the plan was. every single person knew what their role was to play within the plan. And everyone knew what happened if things turned to pot or something happened or someone got injured, that they had a backup for that person. So off they went. The season started. They played the first game against the Carlton Footy Club. And inside the rooms, the coach was talking about the plan. Remember the plan, the plan, the plan, the plan. The boys run out. They run through the banner. They sing the song. They bounce the ball. 2 minutes in, you'll see a camera on the telly. If you ever watched AFL footy, you see the camera pan up to the coach and you see a look on the coach. The coach picks up the phone, dials down to the runner. Once the runner runs out, sends out a message to the player. Jesse, remember the plan, the plan, the plan, the plan. You've got to be goal side. You've got to do this, 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 and the other. The runner will run out 15, 30 times throughout the quarter. At the end of the quarter, the siren goes. The players come off. They separate into 3 groups, the backs, the mids, the forwards. The line coaches get in. They go, remember the plan, remember the plan, remember the plan. They come in and talk to the head coach. You'll see officials holding up boards that talk to the key indicators of the plan.
Yeah.
Number of inside 50, contested balls, meters gained, this, blah, 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 blah. They don't look at the scoreboard. They look at the key indicators that they know work for their plan. To cut a long story short, the Richmond Footy Club followed the plan within an inch of its life, and at the end of the year, on the last Saturday in September, the Tigers win the premiership. Full forward Jack Revolt's on stage singing Mr. Brightside with the Killers with the premiership medallion around his neck. So what's the message in that? I said at the start, at the onset, that most of us don't have a plan, and those of us that do, it sits in the drawer and we don't share with our team. Every single person knows about the plan. The next thing is the elite sportsman or the elite sportswoman. One of the things that they demand instant feedback on how I can improve.
Yeah.
For the business owner, typically, we don't even talk to our team about what they should do better or how they can get better. We struggle to have those courageous conversations. Yet in elite sporting teams, whether it's the NBA, whether it's soccer, whatever sport it is, there's constant monitoring. How do I get better? How do I get better? How do I be better? And the more I started to think about that, the more it dawned on me that there's so much that we can learn. We've got a team. There's 60 people in our business. 10 of them are in another state than I'm in, but there's 60 team members in our organisation. Everyone performs a role. Everybody is a representation, or representative rather, of our brand and our business. Man, I should be talking to them all the time. And so, yeah, well, it's a podcast. I was going to show you my plan, but it doesn't really work because you can't. But so how we develop our plan, Jesse, is it's just on one page.
Yeah.
Who's interested in reading a 20-page strategic plan? We just got a one-page plan. It's pretty simple. It cuts across the key areas: our people, processes, customers, and our financials. It talks about high-level financials. We share with our team our revenue. They know our gross profit. Most of our guys can work out how much money we're making because they're accountants. And if they can't, I don't think they're a good accountant. But I don't say, hey, we're making this much profit, but they can work it out, yeah? And then we break those down into subsets because we've got, I think, 8 different teams within our organisational structure. So each team knows what their plan is. And at the end of the day, what it does do is it centres around our customer, yeah?
Yeah.
And making sure that we live up to what it is that we live up to. And we've spoken to before about Simon Sinek and the powerful stuff he talks about. For us, our why is all about liberating people's lifestyles. And so whenever we go to make a decision, whenever we engage with a supplier, a team member, a customer, a client, whatever, it's all about liberating people's lifestyles. And that's the motto that we run through in our organisation.
Yeah, mate. Ladies and gents, if you've just joined our particular episode here, I'm having a conversation with Jason Cunningham from the practice, and we're talking about how to get your business ready for sale. But as a particular subset of that, we're talking about how to transition if you're a person who's currently in the trenches doing the dentistry. And again, if you want to stay in that role, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you aspire to have a different role, to be the business owner, not being in the trenches, Jason's really shared a couple of key things with us already. We're talking about the importance of having a strategic plan, getting out of the practice, getting out of your home, taking some time out to put the plan together. Of course, it's about communicating the plan, having sub-plans within the master plan so every person on the team knows their roles, and then communicating that plan, reminding people of the plan, knowing the key indicators for that plan, and really having regular feedback, because elite performers want to get feedback on how they can be better every single time. And these are all metaphors that come from sports. And Jason's referred to a book called Legacy by Jim Kerr, which is all about, James Kerr, I beg your pardon. Jim Kerr is from Simple Minds. I'm getting my Kerrs mixed up. But it's a great book, and Jason's already mentioned it, and I'd really commend it too. One of the questions I really want to ask you, Jason, around that is, I understand what you've just said about the transition, And for me, it's one of those things that's simple but not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah? Where do people come unstuck, mate?
Yeah. So I totally get that. And what happens is we get drawn back into what we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So typically, for 99% of businesses, when the customer needs me, I'm there for them.
Yeah.
Right? And so I get that. I totally get that. And I don't have the expectation that things will go 100% according to plan. I adopt the Pareto principle like a lot of business owners do, and that's let's go with the 80-20 rule. Right?
Yeah.
But most times we get unstuck because the customer needs us. And then the second reason is that our team members, or some people refer to them as staff or employees or whatever, but our team members need us. And that's okay because we need to be present. We need to be present for our team and we need to be present for our customer or our client. But when those hiccups happen and we get sucked back into our business, that's okay. What we need to do is just time block another time to get back on the horse and focus on what it is that we're doing. Once you start to embrace it, the reverse is also a danger in that you end up doing nothing but working on your strategic plan. And you start to identify all these holes in my business. Oh, this could be better and that could be better. And there's an inherent danger in that. And I think it's key not to get too caught up in that because nothing's ever going to be perfect.
No.
Typically, it's only us that can see the flaws or see the warts in our businesses. But from the outside looking in, they can't be seen. And so don't get too caught up in having things 100% right because it never is. As long as we're authentic, and I think that's a big word in business. So authenticity is something that I'm finding more and more coming to the surface in business. It's okay to get something wrong. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to refund a customer. That happens. So we're just authentic with ourselves and authentic with our team. I think we can and stay focused to the overall objective whilst living in the present. Now there's a challenge for you.
Yeah.
You get a long way closer to where you want to be.
Yeah. And again, some wonderful pearls of wisdom there. One of the things that I've observed with people transitioning out of the day-to-day operations into that, I suppose, more CEO kind of role, and I'm using that word very loosely, but I'm trying to describe the sort of business that Macca might enjoy. One of the things that seems to crop up, and I'm not sure that this is exactly what people think, but it comes across this way at least, is that there is this notion of being an absentee owner. I'm going to be sitting on the beach drinking my pina coladas and the world's going to continue on without me and I'll just bank the check.
Yeah.
Now, I have a particular view around that, but before I express it, I'm curious to understand whether you think that's a fantasy or whether you think it's possible or likely, or I'm sure it's possible for some people, but for most people in business, what's your view?
Yeah, so whenever I give my opinion, I need to preface this. Whenever I give my opinion, it's always based on my experience.
Of course.
And so I couldn't tell how many business owners I've spoken to in 22 years, but I reckon it's lots.
Lots.
Like maybe, I don't know, 20,000 maybe. I don't know. It's lots. And so the reality of sipping pina coladas in Cancun whilst running a business remotely, it's very, very, very small.
Yeah.
Like tiny.
Yeah, that's my view too.
I know about 3 people that do it. One of them's Macca, yeah. But the other point that I wanted to raise is for a lot of business owners,
they don't even want that.
Yeah, they don't. But they also would feel guilty doing that.
And
this may not have been where you were going, but if I just give me the liberty just to run off on this tangent, I know myself personally, I had an air, I felt guilty when I wasn't at work. Or I felt guilty going home or being the first one to go home because I wanted to lead by example. And I guess, too, I was brought up a good Catholic boy and there's nothing wrong with a bit of Catholic guilt thrown in there. But I genuinely believe that my team are okay if I'm not here.
Yeah.
But I still need to be here. I need to be present. And I got I was doing a fair bit of media last year with television and radio and I had quite a few speaking gigs and I wasn't here as much. Now, I was working, I was building our brand, I was building my personal brand and I was bringing in a lot of clients, but I wasn't present. And when you are the leader or one of the leaders within your organisation, your team members do need you to be around. They don't expect you to work necessarily 80 hours a week. They need your presence because they look to you for leadership and they look for you for guidance. They look to you for support. And I think being around is pretty important, even if it's just 10 till 3 or whatever it is. But being around, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of merit in walking the corridors and seeing people, being seen by people, checking in, taking the pulse, all those sorts of things.
Absolutely. Can I tell you, sorry, I just cut across you. Just when you said that about walking the corridors, 24 months ago, I would speak and say that business and the role of the entrepreneur, the role of the leader is just two things, leadership and growth. And I've since realised in the last 24 months that I was wrong. The role of the leader of the business, in my mind's eye, and my experience tells me it's four things. It's leadership, growth, protection. You got to protect the downside in the event that things don't go according to plan.
Yep.
And the fourth one is space, having space in our diary. There are a lot of dentists listening to this. It'll be back to back to back to back to back to back with no space. And I can't tell you how profound it is to have space to enable you to be present within your organisation. And I'll give you this analogy. As you know, I don't mind an analogy, but I hope this is taken the right way. But running a business is very similar to parenting. Now, I'm not saying that our team members or the people that work for us are like our kids, but I'll just give you this analogy. You know, with kids, so my wife and I have three boys. Two of them twins. They're the same age. They're 17, and another boy that is 12. And what I know with kids, to communicate with them, usually it's on their terms when they're ready. Yeah. And so a good dad, you get home at 7 o'clock. How was school, son? Good, Dad. And that's it, right? I find out so much stuff about my kids when I'm just around. Yeah. Just in their company. And that also translates within our organisation. When I'm just around and I'm like, how are things? Not necessarily checking up on them or anything. I find out so much stuff about my business. And after this podcast, I'm taking two of my guys that have been with me for 7 and the other girls 8 years. We're going out for lunch. And I don't spend a heap of time with them with the work that I do. But once a year, we have this special little lunch date. And man, do I find out a lot of stuff about my business.
Yeah. I really agree with that. We talk about incidental conversations in our office, and it's exactly that. And I know in the world that I live in, there's a lot of people running remote teams and all that sort of stuff. And again, I'm not here to cast doubt on any of that sort of stuff, but in the way I like to work, I like having us close in the sense so you can have the opportunity to bump into someone in the corridor and say good day and find out what's happening. I do want to come back to a couple little things. You spoke about creating space, and we had a little bit of a conversation off air as well. And I wanted to talk for a moment about the importance of creating space for yourself. I wanted to ask you about where that fits in with your life.
Yeah. So let me talk about it. I was always somebody that had to be doing something. And sitting down on the couch or being idle just never worked for me. So I always try, and on the weekends I try to jam 100 things in and all that sort of stuff. So one of the things that I do that works for me that was space is I like to go for a walk.
Yep.
It's not necessarily exercise, it's potentially incidental exercise, but I love going for a walk. And one of the things that my wife and I do every Saturday morning without fail is we go for a walk together. And we really connect on Saturday mornings. So I like to, a couple of times a week, I might go for a walk. I might listen to an audiobook. I might listen to music. I might listen to nothing. Where previously I'd be going for a walk. I've got to listen to that audiobook. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And then what I might do is I'll walk to the river. Then I'll run round the river and then I'll walk back and I'll get some exercise in and all that sort of stuff. I guess I'm practicing and slowing down and giving myself the space. But I also do little quirky things like living in Melbourne, I'll go to Hepburn Springs or Dalesford.
Yep.
I might go for 2 days on my own. And I just find that just getting out of my comfort zone and just spending 2 days on my own and shutting the phone off and chilling out gives me that opportunity to refresh. At the end of last year, I went to a health retreat in Ubud in Bali.
Yeah, nice.
I went on my own. I did a juice fast for 6 days. I mean, I'm a meat and 3 veg and 6 beers sort of guy, you know what I mean? And so I think there was 35 people on the retreat. There were 2 other guys, and there were 32 women, and most of the women were about 50 to 65. And I'm a 45-year-old AFL playing, loving, beer drinking, pizza eating sort of bloke. I didn't connect, you know.
Yeah.
And man, it was awesome. I was doing yoga and all these sort of Pilates and all this sort of stuff. Normally I'm on the bench press or bicep curls or going for a run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It was actually good for me. And I was like this token white guy for them, so it was good for them as well. It's funny. I talking about their grandkids and lovely Jason, and it was really cool.
Oh, mate, that's awesome.
Hey, I came back bloody hungry, but
I came back and I ate half a cow. That's so funny. Hey, mate, I know that we've got a few minutes left, and I can't help but let the conversation go. We spoke a little bit off air about life changes, transitions, and I was sharing with you that as I'm getting older, things that were once important to me become less so, other things more so, and all the rest of it. And I'm curious to look at that through the lens of business as well, because you were telling me about a book you're reading, and I didn't mention to you that I had reread a book I'd read years ago called Man's Search for Meaning. And again, lots of things to consider and ponder as we go through, but I don't quite know where this question's going. I just wanted to kind of open up a bit of a philosophical chat to round out the conversation, because we spoke about getting your business ready for sale and all the rest of that. And it's good to run a business, but I think it's also got to be viewed through the lens of my life and what I'm looking to achieve in my life. And I'm curious to ask you about some of the things you've observed as you've gone through your 30s and 40s, things that are changing, and whether you've observed that in clients as well. For the younger generation, what it might seem a little bit odd, but it seems to happen quite regularly.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, you and I are about the same age. Let's be honest, you're significantly older than me. But
how did I know that was coming? I led with my chin, didn't I?
We're the same age, I started business at 24, and as I went through my business journey, typically I was attractive to people around my age. Yeah. So, when I was 35, our clients were about 30 to 40. When I was 40, they were about 35 to 45 and so forth. And so now at 46, a lot of the people that I'm talking to are somewhere between, 40 and 55, right? And as we get to this stage in life where I once thought that I needed a dream home and 10 rental properties and all this sort of stuff and money in super, and I felt like I needed to achieve so many things, and write a book or write a couple of books and work on telly and radio and all that sort of stuff. Now that I've got to this stage in my life where my twins are going to be turning 18 soon, and they're going to be in cars and they're gone, and my little bloke's 13 and he's growing up faster than anything, the question then begs, what's it all about? Yeah.
Yeah.
And typically these things only happen when, I guess, we get to a certain milestone in age, or there's a significant event that happens in our life. And I've had a couple of significant events over the last 12 months that has really given me a bit of a wake up to where I'm at. And I lost my mum in August last year, and it's coming up to her anniversary. And I guess when you lose someone that you love, that means the world to you. And, my mum always said to me, Jason, stop and smell the roses. I go, who wants to smell roses, Mum? I got shit to do, And then it got to a point where I thought, well, maybe it's enough's enough, And so we sold our house, which is, I've been a guy that, we spent 45 minutes talking about the plan and planning. I've planned out my whole life. I've planned the next hour. I'm forever planning. And for the moment, I'm just like, well, I've got it. I'm not saying throw the plan out. I'm not saying the last 40 minutes I've said is all rubbish. I'm saying put the plan in place, but it's not the be all and end all. I think it's about being present. And this Eckhart Tolle with The Power of Now that I've been listening to, hard book to listen to, but man, it's really given me a whole new perspective. And so, if we don't hit our budgets and we don't hit our targets and we miss and I lose a client and key person leaves or something like that, it'll be okay. It's going to be okay. And I guess that's where I'm at the moment. I'm just at that part in my life. And I probably don't have as much energy as I did when I was 25 or when I was 35. And that's okay. And I think the younger people have just gone out and started their business, start their practice. I'm saying go for it. But just remember at what cost. And I think that's really important.
I think that's absolutely gold, ladies and gents. If you could just rewind the last 5 seconds and say, yes, I'm going to go for my business, but remember the cost. I think that's really important because that's a life lesson. And sometimes, one of the things I've observed as I'm getting older is sometimes it's all been great. And there have been other times where I've zigged where perhaps I might have zagged. And that's okay too. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to make a boo-boo. It's okay because what I think the key thing I want to just tap into what you said, it will be okay. And the sun will rise tomorrow. You're going to wake up next to your husband or your wife and give them a kiss and all that sort of stuff. And those things are the priceless things. And cliche though it sounds, sometimes in life you realize that a little more deeply than at other times. Well, at least for me anyway.
Just wait until they clean their teeth before the kiss.
Too right. And floss. So, hey, mate, that's a rather philosophical way to end our conversation. And just to tie this into a bit of a bow, I know you've got engagements in a moment. So if there were any things you'd like to leave the audience with, what would be a couple of pearls of wisdom from Jason Cunningham?
Okay, thank you. I guess the first thing I would say is that for most of us, we're in the people business, and so therefore, enabling the role of a leader is to create other leaders, even if you think it might be to your detriment and they might leave your business. I think creating more leaders who can perform to their very best and be the very best that they can be, man, that's a real rewarding thing. The second thing is look at your business through the eyes of your customer. In my industry, we refer to our customers as clients, but I like to say customer just to shit everyone else in my industry. But if you look at your business through the lens that your customer sees your business and you communicate to them in a language that they understand, you're 9/10 of the way there.
Yeah, totally.
The price becomes irrelevant. And the final thing is, if it's to be, it's up to me. Forget about the world economy. Focus on your own economy. Forget about the status of, where things are at in the market. Just worry about your own market. And if it's to be, it's up to me. Put together a plan. Take time away from your business. Get someone to help you knock together a plan and go from there.
Mate, that's absolutely wonderful. And I just want to say thank you from all of us here in the office and all the listeners. You've been a wonderful guest. It's why we invited you back, mate. Your first episode was gold. This is just as golden as the first. And I want to say thank you so much for your generosity of spirit, your wisdom, your willingness to share it. And, mate, you're an absolute trooper, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate it. And, hey, mate, it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy talking to you and I enjoy listening to your podcast. So thanks so much for having me on.
Pleasure, mate.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green. For more free tools and resources, join the free Facebook group. Visit drjessegreen.com/Facebook. And for more episodes, visit drjessegreen.com/savvydentist.